today's ritual, there was an important historical fact that was lost. She won. She won the popular vote. Hillary Clinton got more votes than Donald Trump did. She won the presidential election held on Election Day, but that's not enough to win the presidency because we don't elect a president on Election Day. The Electoral College elects a president when they meet on the first Monday after the second Wednesday in December. Now, you know you're deep into the world of ritual when your meeting must occur on the first Monday after the second Wednesday in December. It sounds like you're deep into the world of cultish superstition. Those words are actually written in law to specify when the Electoral College meets. And just by reading them, just by saying them, you can feel the absurdity of the Electoral College, how outdated it is. The Electoral College is one of the most enduring mistakes of the Founding Fathers. And the two men who designed the Electoral College would be horrified at what it has become. They believed that the way it operates today was unconstitutional, a serious violation of the spirit of the Constitution. The Constitution was written by men who did not trust voters. They didn't trust them completely. In the federal government, they allowed voters to elect only members of the House of Representatives. The Constitution said that senators would be elected by state legislators. That wasn't changed until 1913. The Founding Fathers clearly thought that the job of senator was too important to be decided by the man on the street. And that was back when most people couldn't vote. No women were allowed to vote. No slaves were allowed to vote. And only certain kinds of men were allowed to vote. In some areas, you had to own property to vote, indicating that you were a man of substance, a man of judgment. That's what the electors in the Electoral College were supposed to be. Men who could be trusted to choose a president because, in Alexander Hamilton's words, they needed to be men who possessed the information and discernment to make that decision. The Electoral College was designed by Alexander Hamilton and James Madison. Their idea was that on Election Day, voters would vote not for the president, but for an elector, someone smarter than themselves, who then would vote for President of the United States when the Electoral College met at a later date. That date was formalized in law in 1887 as the first Monday after the second Wednesday in December. In Madison and Hamilton's view, the electors were free to vote for whoever they wanted to vote for as president. They believed that back then, New York State's 12 electors each could and should make up his own mind about who the next president should be. New York might produce maybe 4 electoral votes for one candidate, 3 electoral votes for another candidate, 3 electoral votes for another, then 2 for maybe another. They didn't want New York State's electors to get together and make a political deal to all vote for the same candidate. Madison and Hamilton became alarmed when they saw electors in some states realizing that they could do that they could get together and choose a candidate. The electors in certain states then all banded together and voted for the same person so that their candidate would be more likely to win, and Hamilton hated that. And he hated even more the idea that some of the electors would be pre-pledged to vote for a certain candidate for president. He didn't want electors who weren't going to think about who the best president would be. He didn't want electors who were pledged to a candidate and won votes from voters by pledging themselves to a candidate, which is exactly what we have right now. Hamilton said that the point of choosing electors was to make sure that the president would be chosen, quote, by men most capable of analyzing the qualities that a president should have. Hamilton didn't want robots in his Electoral College. He thought that would be a violation of the constitutional description of how the Electoral College should work. When he saw that the Electoral College was being abused, Hamilton actually wrote an amendment to the Constitution to try to correct it, an amendment that was never passed. And so, you win the presidency now, not by winning the most votes. You win the presidency by winning the most robots in the Electoral College. an anti-democratic idea, an idea so anti-democratic that no democracy designed after ours has adopted the Electoral College. Our democracy has been a model for centuries for many developing democracies around the world, but none of them chose the Electoral College. No one wants that. Real democracies actually allow people to vote directly for the president. She won the popular vote. That's what you hear, the popular vote. A phrase that exists only in the United States of America. You know what they call the popular vote in the rest of the world? The vote. You win the vote, you win the office. And that is true for every elective office in the United States, from school committee to town council to alderman to mayor to state legislator to governor to Congress to senator, every single elective office in the country except the most important one. And of course, votes in the Electoral College are not democratically distributed throughout the country. They are not fairly distributed according to population. Wyoming only gets 3 electoral votes. That's the least that any state can have. North Dakota and South Dakota each get 3 electoral votes. But there are a lot more people in South Dakota than in Wyoming. Wyoming has 586,000 people. South Dakota has 300,000 more people than that. But it doesn't get 1 more electoral vote than Wyoming. It doesn't get any more electoral votes than Wyoming. It just gets those 3. So South Dakota voters are not as fairly represented in the Electoral College as Wyoming voters are. But California has 39 million people, and it only gets 55 electors in the Electoral College. If California voters got equal representation in the Electoral College to Wyoming voters, California would get 199 electors in the Electoral College. That is how wildly unrepresentative of actual American voters the Electoral College is. The Electoral College was designed when California was still Mexico. It was designed when the variation in population from state to state was nothing like the extremes that we see today. Today's population numbers and the patterns of settlement across the continent were unimaginable to the men who designed the Electoral College, but we're stuck with it. This archaic device designed by men who did not trust voters. It would take a constitutional amendment to rid us of it, which means we're stuck with it for the foreseeable future. We are stuck with an anti-democratic institution that if we observed a foreign country using it, when we go there to foreign countries as election observers to certify the integrity of their elections, we would say, oh, no, you can't do that. Can't do that. I've been an election observer in foreign countries on election day, watching people vote. And no one called it the popular vote. They called it the vote. No one said I was going to have to come back on the first Monday after the second Wednesday in December to watch some small group in a room make the final decision about who the president should be. In any other real democracy, the president-elect today sitting in the Oval Office with President Obama would be Hillary Clinton. But this is the country where you can win the presidency through a political card trick called the Electoral College. She got more votes. More people voted for Hillary Clinton than voted for Donald Trump. And we are now 48 hours into the discussion of what Hillary Clinton didn't understand about America, what she didn't understand about the voters she had to appeal to. 48 hours into the discussion of what the Democrats have to do now to change their message. 48 hours into the discussion of what the party and the candidate who got the most votes must do to get more votes in order to actually win. Only in America. That is a discussion that can happen only in America, where winning the election is not enough to win the office of the presidency. Winning the most votes, not enough. That's what winning the election is in a real democracy, winning the most votes. The world knows this. We have embarrassed ourselves to the world once again, with the world watching twice in 16 years now. The winner of the vote was not sworn in as President of the United States. Do not expect the world to understand that. Do not expect the world to admire our democracy. Alexander Hamilton would be horrified to see the perversion that his Electoral College has become, and he would surely be horrified to see the kind of man who sat beside President Obama today, thanks entirely to Alexander Hamilton's Electoral College. Coming up,